Hello, Namaskar, Vanakkam. My name is Sudhir Sahasranaman and you're watching Study with Sudhir. Let's do the last poem of ISC Class 11 Modern English Syllabus. This is from the book Reflections and this is called Bora Ring. Now, what kind of poem exactly is this about? Now, the theme of the poem, which is written by Judith Wright, and you should read the text which has been given on the left hand side of the page 12 in your textbook, which talks both about the poet, also tells you a little bit about what the poem is about. Now, it's a deeply evocative and contemplative poem. I'm reading from the textbook that explores the themes of cultural loss and the erasure of indigenous traditions. Now, basically, the poem is about the loss of Aboriginal culture. Now, what exactly does this mean? I'll explain to you subsequently. And also the loss of spirituality because of being colonized by Europeans. So the Bora ring, I'll tell you exactly what Bora ring is also about. It was once a sacred ceremonial ground, where there were certain kind of rituals and ceremonies which happened. Now, because of colonization, it lies silent. There is really nothing happening there. It has been abandoned. And that is symbolic of how native traditions, the traditions which are, rooted in culture and history and tradition of a place, they have vanished over a period of time. The songs, the dances, the entire culture. So Judith Wright, in this particular poem, which is a short poem of 4 stanzas, but extremely deep in nature, she kind of feels sad and mourns this kind of erasure of the tradition and shows deep empathy. She sympathizes with the people whose connection with their land, because this tradition has been broken, therefore their connection with the land has also been broken. That is the essential theme of this particular poem. I would want you to write this so that you can use this in your answers. I would be making a few test papers, I think about 3 test papers, which will give you an idea about how to answer. The MCQs will contain mostly analysis and application understanding based questions. I mean, recall, though, in any case, you will be able to do, but so that you are tested deeply, so that you are very well prepared before you take the final examination. The poem also criticizes modern Australia's indifference. That is, the modern day Australia is pretty, callous about it. It's indifferent. It doesn't care about its past, suggesting that nature itself, it's feeling sad about this loss of tradition and culture. Ultimately, the poem is a lament, means it feels sad, and therefore it is it's an aggrieved cry for a culture which has been destroyed by modernization, by progress, and therefore it is a reminder that forgetting the past silences the land itself, that the land itself, nature itself, grieves for what has happened. Now, what exactly do we mean by the word Aboriginal? Now, it refers to the first or the original inhabitants of a land. And in the specific context of Australia, Aboriginal people are the indigenous Australians, that is, the communities who lived there for tens of thousands of years before the Europeans arrived. And they therefore have their own languages before the European English, etc., was imposed on them. They had their local traditions, their spiritual beliefs, and a deep connection with land and nature. So when Judith Wright writes about the Aboriginal Bora ring, she's talking about a sacred ceremonial ground used by these indigenous people for important rituals. This is important. And this is often what? I mean, we're talking about initiation into something better, storytelling, and connecting with their ancestors and the spiritual world. What is Bora ring, which is the title of this particular poem? It is a sacred ceremonial ground used by those indigenous Australian people in ancient times. It was usually a circular kind of a ring, right, of earth. Sometimes it was surrounded by stones, and each of these stones had a lot of significance, right? They used it for important ceremonies, important rituals where boys were accepted into adulthood, for dances, songs, and different kinds of spiritual gatherings. Let me reduce it a bit. Okay. And in this poem, the Bora ring has become empty and abandoned, forgotten, And that symbolizes how the traditions, the cultures, and the spirituality has been lost or destroyed after colonization. And the silent Bora ring stands at a sad reminder of a vanished way of life. So this is what I've given you the background about this poem, because if you understand that, it will make it easier for you to understand this poem. Okay. So let's go through it stanza by stanza. I would request you to also note down the notes that I'm telling you about. One minute. Now, the song is gone, the dance is secret with the dancers in the earth, the ritual useless, and the tribal story lost in an alien tale. So you can see the illustration which kind of illustrates the Bora ring. Now, the song is gone, the dance. Okay, what does the first line mean? Now, the song refers to the traditional songs of the Aboriginal people used in rituals and ceremonies. Is gone means these songs are no longer sung, they have disappeared. The dance, it refers to the ceremonial dances that expressed storytelling, they expressed community feeling, spirituality. So together, this first line means that the Aboriginal songs and dances that were once full of life now have vanished. Is secret with the dancers in the earth. Is secret means it is hidden or lost. It is hidden or it has been completely lost over a period of time. With the dancers in the earth means the Aboriginal people who performed those dances, they are now dead and buried in this particular ground. So the dances are therefore now secret. They are lost or hidden because the people who knew them have died, they have passed away, and it suggests that the old culture now exists only as a memory buried with its people. Okay. The ritual useless and the tribal story lost in an alien tale. The ritual useless means it's referring to the old ceremonies that once had deep meaning, but now they are no longer performed. They are no longer being performed, or they are considered useless. Okay, they are considered useless, or they are because they are no longer performed. And the tribal story, it is referring to the myths and the ancestral beliefs by the ancestors who carried their wisdom and beliefs. The poet laments that these traditions have lost their purpose in the modern world. So lost in an alien tale means lost means again it has been forgotten or it has been misplaced or lost. In an alien tale, alien means something which is foreign. Here it is referring to the European colonizers, their culture. So basically it means to say that the Aboriginal stories have been replaced by the stories and the culture of the people who have colonized them, the colonizers. So overall meaning of the first stanza is it mourns the disappearance of the Aboriginal culture, their songs, their culture, their rituals, their stories, etc. They have now been buried along with the people and they have been replaced by foreign influences. So the poet's tone, immediately you get it, is one of sorrow. She's feeling very bad about it. It's also very respectful towards the past as she recognizes the loss of a very rich and spiritual heritage. If you have to look at the poetic devices which have been used in the first stanza, the song is gone is a metaphor. Okay, this is a metaphor representing the loss of culture and tradition. This dance is secret. These two are metaphors. Okay, for the dead because they represent the dead Aboriginal people. There is a lot of imagery with the use of words like song, dance, earth, ritual, story. It's a sense of images, right? Very strong visual and emotional images. There is also a sense of personification. The song is secret with me. It gives the dance a human-like quality as if it can keep secrets. There is also a sense of contrast between the tribal story and the alien tale, right? So there is a sense of contrast because it is contrasting native culture with foreign culture influence. And the tone, as I said, is one of mourning, that it's a lament for what has been lost, something which has been precious, which was considered precious, which has been lost. I hope the first stanza is now absolutely clear. Let's move to the second stanza. Only the grass stands up to mark the dancing ring. Now, only the grass stands up to mark the dancing ring means only emphasizes what? It emphasizes the fact that everything else is gone, only the grass stands. Everything else is gone. You see the trees, only this particular region of grass which has been left, everything else has gone. The grass stands up means that the wild grass now stands tall in the place where there were once people and the movement of those people. So in that place, only this grass stands tall. The poet is therefore suggesting that nature is the only thing which is standing. Okay, it has replaced human life and activity, and it also gives you a sense of loneliness. You can see only the grass, so there is a sense of loneliness. There is a sense of being desolate, isolation, emptiness, because there are no people and therefore no sound, only grass. To mark the dancing ring, the apple gums. To mark the dancing ring means what? It means that the grass is growing around or over the Bora ring, which was once a dancing place where people used to perform their dances, their traditional dances. So the Bora ring, which was once a ceremonial ground, is now just a mark in nature. It is like a memory which has been faded away. The apple gums. Now, the apple gums refers to a very specific type of Australian eucalyptus trees. Okay, and that is very common in the rural landscape of Australia. So those trees are now surrounding or overlook the empty Bora ring. Posture and mime, a past corroboree. So posture and mime refers to the pose and imitation, like actors silently recreating something. A past corroboree. Corroboree is an Aboriginal ceremonial dance or gathering which is full of rhythm, movement, or song. So basically what is being conveyed is that the trees seem to imitate, or let's say silently reenact the long lost dances, okay, that once happened on this Bora ring, at this Bora ring. And therefore this particular description gives a scene a very ghostly, a very eerie kind of, a very spiritual kind of a feeling, as if nature itself is trying to remember what really happened in the past. So that is something which is very important. Okay, now murmur, a broken chant. The trees seem to imitate or silently enact is what has been conveyed in the previous thing. And the next sentence takes it forward, saying that there also seem to be murmuring, a soft, low sound. It's as if the whisper of the wind through the leaves. A broken chant. Now, chant is something which is like in Hindi we call the mantra. So it refers to the faint echoes of the old Aboriginal songs, which are now fading away, which are now incomplete. So the wind through the trees sound like the very faint, broken version of the old music, the ancient music, suggesting, what does it suggest? It suggests a very weak, fragile memory of a lost culture. Okay, so the overall meaning of the second stanza is that it paints a very haunting picture. The Bora ring is empty, as has already been conveyed, but nature, which is consisting of the grass, the apple gums, and the wind, still remembers the Aboriginal ceremonies that used to once fill the entire place with a lot of life, right? So the landscape which is present now itself seems to echo, or let's say mimic or remember those dances and songs of the past. It's as if the spirit of the people lives on through nature, represented by the grass and the trees and the wind, even though their culture has disappeared, has been completely taken over by the foreign colonizers. Okay, so when you talk about in terms of personification, the grass stands up. The grass is given human qualities of standing or remembering, that is personification. The apple gums posture, again a case of personification. Murmur, a broken chant, again a case of personification for the wind, because nature seems to sing or whisper the lost song. So personification is an important poetic device that has been used throughout the poem. Imagery, again in terms of nature, of tall grass, trees, circular dancing, etc., is all case of imagery. Metaphor, nature itself is a metaphor for memory. It reenacts what the humans have forgotten. So that is being used as a metaphor. And the tone, as I said, is one of earlier, if it was a mourning, this also continues the same mournful kind of tone, but this also includes the element of nostalgia. Okay, let's move now to the third stanza. The third stanza, the hunter is gone, the spear, this is the spear and this is the hunter, is splintered underground. So the hunter is gone. What does it mean? The aboriginal hunter who once lived freely. I don't know whether you had studied the Chief Seattle speech in Treasure Chest when you were in class 9, right? This is a bit like that. Of course, that one was about America. This one is about Australia. So the aboriginal hunter who once lived freely on this land has disappeared. He's either dead or his way of life has completely vanished. It also symbolizes the disappearance of the traditions, skills, and the lifestyles of the aboriginal people. The spear, what does it convey? It is a symbol of hunting. It is a symbol of, therefore, survival. It's a symbol also of strength. So it is a traditional weapon used by the people then. And together, this particular line conveys, it suggests the end of an era, because that era is now over and both the people and the tools are long gone. Is splintered underground the painted bodies. So splintered underground means it has been broken. Splintered means broken into several pieces. Underground means buried or forgotten. So this means that even the spear, which was used by them for hunting and therefore it was a symbol of survival and strength, the hunter symbol of life and purpose, is now rotting away in the soil, right? And it is a metaphor, therefore, of cultural decay, the loss and the decay of all those traditions. The painted bodies refers to the dancers and the hunters, the aboriginal people who used to paint their dance. You see in this illustration, they've all painted their bodies while they would be performing their dance, the traditional patterns, the culture, etc. So the image recalls a very vibrant culture. Now it has been reduced to just a memory. You can just remember it in the mind. It's no longer present. It's like, going back to your old ancestral home, and there you can remember, oh, this is where my great grandfather used to sit. This is where my grandfather spent his childhood. This is where probably even my father spent his childhood. So those are all your memories of your ancestral home, though they no longer exist, and that has probably now been converted into a modern house by whoever bought that house after you. So something similar, if you are able to kind of correlate and think of that sentiment, right? So this image, the splintered underground, the painted bodies, it recalls a very vibrant culture that was existing at one point in time, and now it has been reduced to a mere memory. A dream the world breathed, sleeping and forgot. Now, a dream suggests something very beautiful. Dreams are generally beautiful. Nightmares are scary. A dream suggests something very beautiful, spiritual. At the same time, it's unreal, right? It's just a vision, right? The world breathed, sleeping means the world once experienced this culture, but as if in a dream, not realizing its value, and forgot. Now the world has woken up and forgotten the dream, and that is now been, it's a case of completely having vanished. So it means that the modern civilization, that is modern day Australia, has completely ignored, forgotten, and erased the memory of the aboriginal life. It may come in your dreams, but once you wake up, you do not remember the dream, right? So this particular line is a very beautiful line that kind of captures the complete disappearance of aboriginal culture. Once it was alive and real, now it is only a faint, forgotten memory in the memory of the earth. It's a dream in the memory of the earth. The nomad feet are still. Now, nomads are people who move from one place to another. So the nomad feet refers to, again, to the aboriginal people who are moving from one place to another with the rhythm of nature. Are still means now they no longer move because they are now one with the earth. They are dead. They're silent. Their journey has ended. So the line ends with the stanza with a sense of finality, a sense of silence, basically to convey that the life that once roamed around this land in a very free-spirited manner, now that has gone forever. So the overall meaning of the stanza is that, one, it mourns the loss of Aboriginal life and movement that is constant through the poem. It also, through the hunter, the spear, the painted bodies, it talks about a culture that once lived in harmony with nature, but now it is a forgotten dream. the final image of the still nomad feet, it kind of captures a very haunting silence that the nomad feet, I mean, the way, the moment you say nomads, it means someone who is moving. It's a sense of movement. But now that sense of movement has been stopped. It is lying still inside the ground. So the poetic device is again metaphor. The hunter is gone is a very powerful metaphor because it symbolizes the loss of the aboriginal life and the traditions. A dream the world breathed, sleeping and forgot. It is a metaphor that compares the culture to a beautiful dream that humanity has ignored and completely forgotten about. Personification, the world breathed, sleeping. Again, personification for the entire world. It's giving the world human qualities. Imagery, you're talking about the hunter, the spear, the painted bodies, all those are powerful images. And symbolism, this is important device. The spear symbolizes what I told you, survival. It symbolizes strength. It symbolizes basically hunting. The painted bodies are a symbol of cultural expression. The nomad feet are a symbol of movement and freedom and life, but now they are all in a state of stillness. Let's finally come to the last stanza. Only the rider's heart howls at a sightless shadow. What does it mean? Now, this you can see from the illustration. It's very eerie looking. It's almost very daravana, very fearful, very scary. Only, again, the word only emphasizes that almost no one feels or notices what remains except one person, that is the rider's heart. So the rider's heart, rider is obviously referring to a modern traveler, someone perhaps riding a horse through the landscape, or symbolically a modern observer who is moving through life. Okay. Heart stands for emotion. Heart always conveys emotion, sentiment, feelings, human sensitivity. So only a person, basically to say that only a person who is moving and who has the sensitivity, the empathy and the awareness feels the sadness or the weight, the importance and the significance of the land's forgotten past. Others pass by without noticing, but the rider's heart stops, sensing something very deep. It halts at a sightless shadow, an unsaid word. Now, halts means the rider's heart stops or pauses, moved by something which is unseen. Sightless shadow, what exactly this mean? Now, this is a case of alliteration also. Okay, not exactly sir and sure here, but it's a shadow that you cannot see very clearly. Sightless, it's a shadow that is not to be seen very clearly. So therefore, it is probably representing some kind of spirit, some kind of ghost of the lost Aboriginal people. And this can also, the moment you say ghost, it also refers to something which is a sense of guilt or fear, something which is invisible, but you can only feel it, right? Unsaid word. Unsaid word is something which is never spoken, but again, deeply understood. Perhaps the unspoken sorrow or guilt of colonization or destruction. So this line, only the rider's heart halts at a sightless shadow, an unsaid word that fastened in the blood of the ancient curse, the fear as old as Cain. So the first part of this line refers to that the rider's heart senses that there is some kind of an invisible presence. He feels the invisible presence of the past. It is a haunting kind of a memory. It's a memory that does not say anything, so it's unspoken about what really happened on this land. That fastens in the blood of the ancient curse. Fastens means to attach very firmly, as if there is some sense of gripping in the blood. No, so now it is the last stanza is very, very powerful. In the blood symbolizes something very deep, almost very part of human culture. In the blood, it's very inherently deep. Of the ancient curse refers to a deep old guilt of something which has been done wrong, right? It is a sin of violence or killing, because there has been some violence which has also occurred. So this basically points to the colonial guilt of having destroyed the indigenous tribe, the culture, the traditions, the spirituality. And that is something that clings to the conscience, a moral curse that cannot be erased. It's like a curse that cannot be erased because the modern people are guilty. The colonizers are guilty of having destroyed, of having killed, destroyed, damaged, hurt the old Aboriginal culture. The fear as old as Cain. Now here, there is a mythological reference. The fear means referring to the deep moral fear of guilt, as old as Cain. Now, this is a biblical reference. Cain and Abel. I hope you have, I don't know if you have read that novel by Sir Jeffrey Archer. Cain was the first murderer in the Bible who killed his brother Abel out of jealousy. So this means that the fear is ancient. It is also universal, and it comes from a sense of guilt, violence, and a sense of betrayal of one's own, right? So in this context, it symbolizes the fear and guilt of the colonizers who destroyed the Aboriginal people. It's a sin as old as Cain, right? So the final stanza, which, as I said, is a very powerful stanza, it shifts from describing the landscape. So far, we were told about the trees, the grass, the old tall wild grass, the wind, etc. It is shifting from nature and the landscape to exploration of human guilt and the conscience of the human. And it says that only a sensitive person, not everyone, only a sensitive person, which is in this case the rider, okay, the rider, he can sense, only the rider can sense, can feel the spiritual weight of the, the place which is haunted by the invisible shadows of what happened in the past. The poet is also suggesting that beneath modern day Australia's surface, modern surface, there is an unhealed wound. Now, this is a very good phrase, which I would, unhealed wound, which I would want you to use in your answers. It is an unhealed, H-E-A-L-D, unhealed wound, the ancient curse of human cruelty and destruction. And it is the same kind of violence that started with Cain and Abel's story. So the poem, therefore, ends on a very chilling kind of a note, right? Because you're talking directly about human violence, and therefore there would be a sense of guilt. It is not just mourning the loss of what has been lost, but reminding people that of, fear, of guilt that still lives in the blood of humankind or mankind. So symbolism, rider is a symbol, sightless shadow is a symbol, ancient curse is a symbol. There is an allusion in this case of the biblical reference as fear as old as Cain. Alliteration, as I referred, a sightless shadow. Metaphor, the entire stanza, last stanza, is a metaphor for colonial guilt. That basically saying that the colonizers would feel the guilt because it would be a haunting presence of history that lives in the blood of humans. And the tone again is very haunting. It's reflective, but it's also a little scary. So that is a kind of tone which has been used. So in the last stanza, to put it in a nutshell, the poem ends with the idea that the land still remembers the crimes of the past. Now, this is another line that I would suggest you use in your answers. The crimes of the past which were committed by the colonizers, the European colonizers. And though most people don't see it, the sensitive heart would be able to feel this guilt, which is invisible and is as is as old as Cain, the entire biblical story. With this, we come to the end of this particular poem. We have finished with the entire reflections. We've already finished with perspectives. We've also finished with Pygmalion. So the entire class 11 modern English syllabus is over. As I said, I would be putting out some test papers so that it gives you an idea about how to write the 5-mark. It's very different from your class 9 and 10 reference to context questions. They have to be deep, so there has to be perfect understanding, which is why I have explained it in so much of detail. I hope you have taken down the notes of whatever I spoke. So 5-mark answers, the 10-mark answers, the reasoning questions, and also the MCQ. So you're going to get 4 different kinds of questions about which your approach needs to be very precise. So those 3 papers, which will also include 1 specimen paper, should ideally help you in preparing for them. That should come sometime soon. I haven't started preparing them yet. Now that I've finished with the entire syllabus, I will sit down and start preparing them. Okay. Thank you very much. Do subscribe to the channel, share the videos with your friends and with your juniors next year, and hope to see you with the test papers. Thank you very much. That will be on our website, studywithsudhir.com. Tata, bye-bye, namaskar.